And happy Wednesday to the world out there. Gentlemen, happy Hawkscast.net podcast day. A little sad today.
Yeah, I don't know if happy is the right word for it today.
Well, I'm happy to talk to you guys. I'm just not happy what we have to talk about. Maybe that's the way I'll put it.
Yeah, that's fair.
1 week only. It's a Mariners podcast. No.
Oh God, I would throw my computer out the window. Like, I know they're in a wild card race, but I can't care about the Mariners right now. There's almost nothing they could do to get me excited for their games. Like, I will definitely check a box score, but I don't care if they make the playoffs this year or not.
Maybe it should be a Kraken.
If they got to the American League Championship Series, would you start to raise an eyebrow?
I mean, I guess I would have to, because at that point, they're going to play the
Seattle would go one.
I mean, kind of like what we're seeing right now. The NFL has added a third wildcard team. The MLB has added basically a play-in game to their playoffs. So the two wildcard teams play a one-game playoff, and that's technically a playoff team. They don't play a series; they play the one game.
Right.
So,
well, that's what I'm saying. If they got to the AL Championship Series, would you?
The AL Championship means that they've actually played a game, and that's the big difference between what MLB has done and what football's done. Yeah, football has made it so that the number one seed is even more valuable because it's the only team that gets a bye, versus previously it was the first and second seed. Now, if you're the second seed, you still have to host a game in wildcard weekend. So I can at least respect that. It's been 20 years since this team, the Mariners, have been to the playoffs, and I don't think that this year is going to make it that much closer, especially since they're chasing and not leading.
All right.
But I continue to say, anyone who is a Mariners fan, I am happy for them, but it's just not for me anymore, especially baseball itself. It's hard for me to stay interested in a 3.5 hour game that there's so much little action.
I find the more that, this is going to sound weird, because I'm not a baseball guy, but I find, first of all, my older friend, the older I get, the more into baseball I am, and that's just, I think, the nature of baseball. But also, lately, the more that the NFL slightly pushes me away here and there, I find myself looking a little bit more at baseball, because it suits my character a little bit more. The NFL is becoming step by step like the NBA. It's just so easy to score, and it's just all offense, and and I like a more balanced game. So baseball may be and that's why baseball's sort of dying in America. It doesn't really match American culture. Americans don't want a thinking game and a sort of chess match type of situation, right? They want scoring, instant gratification. So
yeah,
get off my lawn.
I know. Here's the way that'll look at it. In football, you have to move down the field to score, right? In baseball, you have to move around around the diamond to score. But I feel like the payout in baseball is so minimized because it's a 162 game season. That's half a year of playing a sport. You're not gonna and if you're in Seattle, of those 20 years, the Mariners have not been competitive for all but maybe 4 or 5. That's really sad. But we're off on a tangent. We're not talking about Mariners. Ross got me off topic. I apologize. We're here to talk about pain of being a Seahawks fan these past week. Gentlemen, that was almost like a slow death. I feel like. I was watching that game with a couple of buddies outside at a TV under a gazebo. It was very nice. But that game, it was a competitive first half, but that second half was just wow, we're never going to get the ball. Our defense is not going to get off the field, and our offense just could not do anything in their limited opportunities. It was a very slow, painful death.
It was ugly. I hated it.
It wasn't fun.
It started okay.
It wasn't fun at all.
It was
It was.
great.
I mean, like
at first.
yeah,
I think there was one punt in the first half, and if not for the end of the quarter and a missed field goal, pretty much both teams moved the ball at will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving the ball at will, and then for us, Will seemed to move, and we couldn't move the ball at him anymore.
Yeah, where'd Will go in the second half?
Yeah, Will stand still so we can move the ball at you.
Be still, Will.
Yes. It was man, it was like the second game, but sort of like in the extreme version, right? It was
I mean, at halftime, were you worried about where the game was going to go? Like, I didn't have that idea at all. I thought, like, oh, it's going to be a shootout, and our defense needs to pick it up a little bit, but the Minnesota defense doesn't look like it keep pace. That's what I initially thought going into the half.
I mean, that's the conventional thought, right? I mean, you go into a shootout, but you get Russell Wilson on your side, and you're feeling pretty good about your chances. But then you realize you're not just a bad defense. You're a historically bad defense. And no matter what happens, Trey Flowers is over there on the right side. So, yeah, at halftime, I was quiet about it, but my mind was... I mean, you know me, I don't... No matter what, I watch these games. But honestly, at halftime, even though it wasn't a bad situation, I was actually thinking I may go to bed. I just see what that, because I was just like, oh, they're gonna lose, they're gonna lose. They're gonna lose.
Yeah.
And I just felt it, and I felt it. And I debated with myself whether it was better to get a couple hours sleep and then see the score and be pissed off, or to watch it and be pissed off by the process. I, in the end, went for going through the process of becoming angry. So,
You let it mount up.
Yeah. Like step by step, play by play, flower mess up by flower mess up.
How are you feeling, Zeb? Were you watching this game and were you feeling pretty confident, or did it like all of a sudden like flip for you?
I was feeling pretty good when we were up by a couple scores or whatever it was. I don't remember exactly what the score was, but it was the offense was humming along nicely, and I was like, okay, I'm with it. Let's keep this up. And then it was just like the wheels fell off, and it was just sad. Like, it was really, really frustrating football to watch, especially on both sides of the ball. We couldn't seem to get a stop, and then when we did get the ball, we couldn't do nothing with it. It was very frustrating.
It was really weird to watch that game because there was a point where the Seahawks got a 3-and-out, but a holding penalty away from the ball negated negated that third down stop, and Minnesota drove down the field. You know, I bag on Kirk Cousins all the time. I'll be the first one to admit that he had an excellent game. The Seahawks, even though the pass rush didn't get him and didn't like land any sacks, they were definitely in his face like throughout that game. So it wasn't for lack of pass rush, but what it was is just our secondary and our linebackers could not cover for anything. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but it was really tough to see every ball going to a Minnesota receiver and not having a Seahawks defender within a few yards of that person every single time. Like no ball felt like it was ever contested.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I said that last week. You can't. You don't have to watch the all 22 anymore. You can watch on the normal football screen and see that there's a Minnesota receiver there, and there's not a Seahawks defender like on your screen. And what's going on? That's not. Well, we'll talk about it later, but
they worked us, man. They just worked us.
But that's not. It's part of the frustration for me because I we're going to talk about this, I think, today. But like, where's the blame and what's going on? And then, like, you know, you hear people go, oh, it's personnel, it's scheme, and whatever. I'm like, maybe it's partly scheme. The cornerbacks are even saying scheme, but there's no scheme scheme drawn up by anybody, whether it's Pete or if it's Norton or anybody else. There's no scheme that says, "Oh yeah," and then don't be within 5 yards of the guy you're responsible for. That's not scheme,
Right.
Like if you're in a zone and maybe the zone's not drawn up perfect, or maybe whatever, maybe it's not the perfect play call, but you know what? You're still like an athlete, and you're still like you still have responsibilities, and the play's drawn up so that when the guy's in your zone, you're meant to be there. Like you're supposed to be able to read. Like it's not like zone where like literally it's just a box and you stand in the middle. Like you have a responsibility for a zone. You move inside your zone.
Right. There's not a coach on the sideline drawing imaginary chalk saying, "All right, you're in this box. Don't leave this box."
I mean, like the zone, right? Like it's not a zone that's like incorporating like blocks of concrete on your feet. Like you need to like be in different parts of your zone depending on where the receiver is, and you actually. It's not just like a get out of jail free card. Like you actually like have to still watch where the receivers go and stuff. Like you have responsibilities. Not like you said, it's not a chalk on the ground and go, okay, you stand there. It's a zone. You play the zone. Like and a man to man. Like if you're the free safety and you want to be paid extra money, that means you have to have like a little bit of the ESP that the best. I mean, because Diggs wants to be paid, right? We've made that apparent. He's made that apparent. So that means you have to not. He's not any different. I mean, not anybody, but like we could have put T2, Tedrick Thompson back there, and he could just like make the tackles after the play's made every time. He didn't miss a bunch of tackles, just that he never made a play. And right. I don't really see a difference right now between Diggs and T2. Do you?
No, I mean the entire secondary. They're playing so much off coverage. And the way that they talk about it after the game, they talk about scheme. They say, I feel like there's definitely a lot of problems, and we should probably just move ahead and we'll talk about that. So the Seahawks find themselves asking a lot of questions. Fans are questioning what's wrong with the team. How can a team filled with Pro Bowlers and all pros be so uneven? First in points scored in the first half and last in points scored in the second half. Now the Seahawks are coming off back-to-back losses and now pivot to the NFC West rivals, the San Francisco 49ers. Can the Seahawks find their way before it's too late to panic? This is a HawksCast.net podcast, and Zeb, I'm going to hit you off first with topic number 1. Always the optimist. Is Pete finally going to crack and make a big change mid-season? We've never seen him do anything rash. He's always been stay the course, and for a lot of fans, that actually like upsets them because they want Pete to be more animated. Is Pete going to change? Are we going to see a change finally after all of these years?
This feels like the kind of season where that could happen. Obviously it's going to depend what things look like 3-4 games down the road. I don't think this team's. I think this team's very similar to last year's, except for last year's team got off to that big start, which kept the optimism throughout the season, kept the record halfway decent and actually really good for the most part. But if we get a couple games back, if we're looking at 1-5 or 2-4, 2-6 or something like that, we haven't seen that under Pete Carroll in a long time. So this, if that's the case, if that's the kind of season this starts to look like, I could see big changes happening. We know it's not his style, it's not what he likes to do, but we're not building a team right now, so it's not at the point where a losing season is really tolerable, right? Like this isn't 2010, 11, or 12 where we could accept some mediocrity because we know we're building towards something. This is a team that is supposed to be able to compete right now, needs to be able to compete right now. So if we fall too far behind, it would not surprise me to see him do something uncharacteristic.
What do you think would be the big change? If you had to guess what's in Pete Carroll's mind, what is potentially your idea of what that big change would be?
It really depends on if and when we get to that point, what the main reasoning for it is. But I think the easy answer to that is probably a change at coordinator somewhere, whether that be offense or defense. Hard to say right now, but that to me, that's the obvious choice.
Ross, we've talked a lot, and we've talked about it on the forum as well. Pete Carroll is forever an optimist. There are actually a couple beat writers that say they don't even really go to Pete Carroll's press conferences after the game because he's not going to really share a whole lot. Pete's always going to talk about protecting the team, but if he cracks, what big change could be made this year in mid-season?
If he, working it out in my head, if Pete found a face-saving mechanism, or if he just felt that he was a big enough boy to handle it, I really could see Ken Norton Jr. being replaced. And that could be another, that doesn't necessarily mean you 100% hey, you're no longer the defensive coordinator and we just get a new guy. It could be pieces of that job. It could be that they bring in wow, that was not good pronunciation. There could be a co-defensive coordinator who you call, you bring in somebody, you say this is a glorified intern, but in fact, actually he's trained to pick up the job. Or you could make it a consultant, but actually he's now doing the job. Or you could just take, if you think that, you could take play calling ability away from Ken Norton Jr. I don't think that is the answer because, like I said, it doesn't really matter what the play calls are. Something's not being done because people aren't in the right spot. There is another option, and that seemed to be what happened last year. It felt like Pete was maybe getting close to doing something drastic last year. And then they held that famous meeting, week 6, maybe. Last year when we were literally a historically bad defense. And after the meeting, it was better. And maybe people pointed to, well, now we're playing easier teams. And that was part of it, but that wasn't the only part of it. The easiest, and it makes me kind of, I've railed and railed and railed for it as well, but it does make me feel like I'm grabbing for low-hanging fruit. It's so easy to look and go, oh, it's coordinator. I think there's some other changes that could be made that by Pete that could be pretty drastic. If he really, 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 this, I don't think he would go there, but he's even semi-called, if you read between the lines, he's even called Bobby out. And I wouldn't put it completely out of the realm of possibility that some sacred cows on defense find themselves splitting time. If Brooks moves over to middle linebacker just to put something dynamic there, and Barton plays, because Barton doesn't have anywhere near the athletic ability, but he wasn't a 0-round pick. That dude was picked in a reasonable place, and in the preseason, again, that's against second and third stringers, but what he did show is he has instinct. He has clear instincts, and that's a big advantage. He's never going to be as athletic as the other guys, but Barton has ability to diagnose and make plays. All he does is make plays, so maybe he needs to be out there. And it wouldn't be shocking at all to see, and I think we're going to see that this week. Trey Flowers is going to start splitting time finally. But I don't know what other big changes you can make. And again, you always have to avoid it sounding like you're just sort of scapegoating because, like I said in the opening, it's probably a lot on Ken Norton Jr. because I feel like we've been saying this for 4 years. But Ken Norton Jr. is not writing up plays where it says, okay, now Trey Flowers, just let you do, just go. Just let him go. You just be there to with your GoPro camera, filming the highlight for him. He's not saying that. He's whatever he's drawing up. Maybe it's not very effective, but it does entail Trey Flowers being near the receiver, in his pocket as was ideally. So it's a combination of you don't have the right guys out there, and probably the coordinator isn't putting him in a great position to succeed. I also wonder, even on the offensive side of things, if Shane isn't going to call a great game, and I can't really see this happen, but it wouldn't be amazing. this doesn't really happen much in the NFL anymore, but if Russ is getting to the line now with 15 seconds to go, if they kind of push him to be even more aggressive with audibles, he finally gets the ability to audible now and the time to audible. If they say, you know what, Russ, just kind of call the game, go with the flow. I don't trust Russ to do that. I think he's lost a little bit of self-objectivity. But I don't really trust Shane's playing calling sometimes now either. So I don't know. I wish I had like one magic bullet answer, and there's not one. I feel so cheap saying, "Oh, the coordinator is such a mean fruit." But come on, man! Like we don't have an interception. We're 3 games in. We don't have an interception. We had 1 sack last game.
Yeah.
Darrell Taylor's got 2 sacks in 3 games. That dude should just be out there.
Yeah.
Like we built the team to rotate. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think necessarily everything will happen this week. It's 1 more game, and it's for 2 reasons. As pointed out on our website, PE Hawk talks about maybe we're just really, really built to play the NFC West and beat the NFC West. So, okay, this week we're going to play the NFC West. And if that comes true, and these parts really do mesh well when we're playing against those guys, maybe we've got something there. I doubt it because, yes, there are particular things about the NFC West, but I mean, like, you would think some of those concepts carry over. We'll see. I don't know. Anyway,
It's interesting to be in this situation because, we've talked on the previous podcast that Pete will protect his team. And when he says protect the team, he's talking about every single member, the staff, the coaches, the trainers, the players, the practice squad guys. He will bend over backwards and take blame and take his responsibility. But the problem with that, I think from a fan perspective, it sounds like he's just kind of saying the same things again and again. Anytime that they don't play well, we just didn't execute. The other team took away what we wanted to do. We weren't able to make adjustments in time, or the adjustments we tried to make didn't work out. And when you hear that, it sounds like Pete's not taking responsibility. He's not saying exactly what went wrong. People want to say Trey Flowers is giving too much of a cushion. Kent Norton Jr. is calling bad plays. There's a lot of different ways, and this is also maybe a reason why football is so hard. There is so much asked of the 11 players on the field for each team at a given time. It really just takes one mistake for it to all fall apart. We saw that a lot in that game where I felt like the Seattle was getting constant pressure, but Kirk Cousins just made a great play. He's got 2 really good wide receivers, and he had a running back that just constantly burst for yards through the passing game and through the air. Like, literally, there was no difference in what Alexander Mattison is than Dalvin Cook, and when Dalvin Cook is playing against other teams. Alexander Mattison in 2 games set career highs for his yardage, and he's never come close to that. So it's really weird to think about what Pete is as a coach and what he has been, and how the media, how players, how fans are able to be receptive to that. I don't think Pete will ever make a change midseason. It's just not his style. He's been a coach like this for so long. He might be really taxed into making something big and drastic, kind of like what you mentioned. Maybe Bobby doesn't get as much playing time. Maybe Ken Norton Jr. loses play calling responsibilities. Maybe Shane gets kind of like roped back in and said, like, you got to dumb this down. We're going to run like 20 plays. We're not going to run these 30 plays because we're not going to get to them. I'm worried that if this season goes bad, like our current trajectory with where we all think the season is, that this is the start of the end. I remember in Holmgren's last year, I said, Holmgren's a professional. He's not going to lose the locker room. He's going to finish out strong. It doesn't matter that Ruskell doesn't want to give him a contract. Holmgren's a professional. We're still going to have a decent. We're gonna make a run for the playoffs. Ruskell gets canned at the. Did Ruskell get canned in Holmgren's last year, or did he get canned in Morris' only year?
I think it was during Morris' year.
Okay, so I mean, the writing was on the wall. They already named Mora as the head coach to be, and that season went as bad as you would expect. I hope that's not what we're seeing now, because if it is, it's going to be an awful, awful ride. Tony chiming in saying he wants Ken Norton Jr. gone, and he agreed with what you were saying, Ross. But like you were also saying, Ken Norton Jr. is kind of low-hanging fruit. He's not designing plays to fail. He's designing plays that are going to succeed, that are supposed to attack the weakness of the opposing offense. Same thing as Shane Waldron. Shane Waldron is not saying like, hey, Russell, like, take 5 steps and then do a couple of circles and then hope that you can find someone open. You know, they're all designing something that they intend to work, but you know what they say about the best laid plans. And I hope that's really what we're seeing. It's just that other teams are out executing, and you know, there's going to be a breaking point where that changes. So we'll see. But
what about, so since we're talking about big changes and we obviously say the coordinator's the too obvious, the too easy answer, what are the chances we see some kind of a blockbuster trade or something before the deadline?
I think if we were to see a trade, it would be because we've gone 1-4 to open up the year, maybe 1-5.
Yeah.
I don't know when the exact trade deadline is this year. I always feel like they keep pushing it back in football. But I could see that if they do make that change, it will be the sign of that, you know, this is really the end. Because
who would you think would be the who would you, if they were going to make a big trade, who would be the guy? Who do you think they'd be willing to?
Are you saying we're trading for someone, like we're trading our 20?
No, I'm saying we're trading somebody away.
The most likely people to trade away mid-season are going to be people on the last year or two of their contract. So that's going to be like Diggs or Dwayne Brown or Bobby. Those are the three that
DK? What about DK?
No, I don't think you can trade DK now. He's too valuable.
But he's in his last year, man. Like, imagine what you would get for him right now.
Yeah.
If you traded for DK,
not that I want to go, but I'm just saying, like, you could get a basket full of stuff.
You could definitely get a basket full of stuff if you wanted to trade for DK, but his value, I think, can still go higher. I think you would trade DK if you're trading Russ as well.
Oh, God.
now,
you want to see a fan revolt? Like, holy crap.
Now, there's about a zero... A virtually 0% chance that they trade Russell Wilson mid-season. Like, that's literally not going to happen.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think anybody else is off the table, though. If the wheels really fall off, I don't think anybody else is off the table but Russ.
I mean, I want to say that there's a team that's going to be out there that feels like its missing piece is just some defensive leadership and solidify the middle. And if they had the money for Bobby Wagner, I can't believe I'm saying this, that's the trade. That's the trade.
I think
you let Brooks go to middle, right? That's where he played in college. He was on the inside. And then you let Barton and whatever happened on the outside, the second-year guy. And then what do you want? What do you want in exchange? Picks? That means, like, basically you're just going to make yourself, in theory, maybe a little bit. I mean, here's the thing. Maybe, God, I can't believe we're at the stage of life where we're saying this, but maybe that is addition by subtraction. Maybe Bobby Wagner's a really, really, really solid vacuum cleaner in the middle. Just makes every tackle, but never makes any plays anymore. And maybe if you put Brooks back in the middle, and he's a young guy and he's hungry, he's got the eye of the tiger going on, and maybe all of a sudden he makes a couple plays. Maybe
I understand what you're saying, but
I think there's
against the Titans, Bobby had a great sack. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to topic number 2 because this actually highlights what we're talking about. So topic number 2, Ross, Wilson, Wagner, and Adams are the highest paid players at their position. Are they earning their money? So let's hear about Bobby.
Let's hear about Bobby. I mean, talk about Bobby first. He's $18.5 million at middle linebacker, and he's got a sack, and he set an all-time record for 20, tackles in a game. But it was Do you guys okay? Can I make this the lame fantasy football comparison? Like, do you ever play fantasy football with IDP, where like you draft
Yes, it's
defensive
terrible.
players? Yeah, it's awful most of the time. Every once in a while, it's good just to switch things up. It's cool. It's all right. But like when you're picking the defensive back for you, you need a defensive back player, right? You don't pick like a really really good, like you didn't pick Richard Sherman in his prime as your cornerback because Richard Sherman in his prime doesn't get any tackles because he shuts everything down, gets you some interceptions, but you pick the cornerback who you pick Trey Flowers because he's going to get 9 tackles a game because he's going to give up 9 receptions a game, and then he'll make the tackle like 30 yards downfield. That's who you pick. Like Bobby Wagner's record, like it was the worst way to get it because he got the record because he made his normal 10 to 14 tackles, and then he made 6 tackles, 6 yards downfield, not even challenging the middle of the field throws to Derrick Henry. Like Derrick Henry's never caught more than 3 passes in a game, but they were like, "Oh, just throw at Bobby. Just throw at Bobby." That's 18.5 million guys. That's your best defensive player. But that's the team. That's the guy the other team's now targeting. That's not a good sign. You're not earning your money when you're the guy who gets paid the most and you're the captain, but you're the weak link they perceive. You can't even justify. You can't even pretend you're now worth anything worth 18.5 million. I'm sorry, because he makes tackles. That's like fielding in baseball, like Moneyball baseball, advanced stats. Like you're just expected to field properly, and it doesn't really affect the game that much unless you're a person who really, really can't tackle. If all you do is like just the scheme makes everything go to the second level and you pick up every tackle because the other people took up the blocks, okay, you just did your job. You have to earn 18.5 million by getting everybody in position, by being an extra coach on the field, by making spectacular plays, by having 2 interceptions by now, by having, and he's not. I love the dude, and he should be in the Hall of Fame, and he should be in the Ring of Honor, and he should be, he should never buy a beer again in Seattle, but he's not worth 18.5 million at all. Not even close anymore. Sorry. Jamal Adams probably could be worth his contract, but you have to. They're just being too cute. Line them up in one place like we did last year, and just let them run at the quarterback. And I don't care if it's too predictable, because if it is too predictable, that means they're accounting for it. Oh, okay, fine. That means we have to shift. Okay, cool, because now we have more depth in our line than last year. So Dunlap just straight out runs in from the other side, and we've got a bunch of the young guys who are doing okay. Just let them simplify, not make it more complicated. Jamal Adams, you just run, you just blitz, man. Just not every play, obviously, but don't make it funny. Don't make him blitz, but then you drop Monet into coverage or some damn thing like that anymore. There's a fifth dude, he blitzes, and that should, if they do adapt to it, that's cool, because that should leave some stuff open for Dunlap and other guys on the other side. Just leave it at that. Russell Wilson, it's a little bit iffy. I don't like the contract, but that's besides the point. Is he earning his money now? Yeah, he's 9 touchdowns, no interceptions, high completion percentage. Austin will tell us he just doesn't get any chances in the second half, although with the chances we haven't scored. So there's the thing to be said there, but first-year coordinator as well, and I don't know. Russell Wilson, I can see either side. Jamal Adams, it's probably not completely his fault. And people are going to say, well, he's freelancing. But it's pretty clear that he's been given the green light to freelance. I wouldn't even be surprised if that was part of his contract. It's that much markedly different. Okay, I'm staying and you give me this money, but I get to do what I want so I can get my numbers. Because I want to be... It's all these numbers people now. Anyway, that's my... Bobby's not worth it. I love Bobby, so don't come and assassinate me in the middle of the night with ninjas, but $18.5 million for the dude that just, he's now a target. Come on, man. It's not right.
Zeb, Wilson, Wagner, Adams, they making their money? They earning their money. That's what I should say, sorry.
I think all three of those guys at their best are all worth what they're being paid, but I think that none of them are earning it right now. I think they're all the way they've played this season, and I think it's hard, especially for me, to separate the player from the scheme because I just don't understand the game like that. But yeah, if for what we're seeing out there, what the results are, they're all overpaid. And these are three guys who I was on. I was of the opinion that they earned these contracts and that they deserved them. So I think we need to see better out of these three guys in particular, or we're going to see a lot of changes coming. I mean, a lot of changes probably coming anyway, but at this point, I would be on board with it. If we don't see some pretty marked improvement over these next few weeks, you're going to see me calling for these changes. So yeah, right now they're not earning the money they're being paid.
Of these three, who are you keeping? Let's say you have to just keep one. Doesn't matter when. You're just saying we're keeping one of these guys. The other two we're doing something else with. Who's the one that you're keeping?
I'm keeping Jamal because of his age and his versatility. We know what he can do. We've seen what he's capable of. I think Bobby, unfortunately, as Ross pointed out, we're seeing the dusk of his career. The sun's getting pretty low, big guy.
Nice call out.
And Russell, I love Russell. He's my favorite Seahawks quarterback of all time, not counting Mudbone. But I think
we had Sam Adams.
That's true. Sam Adkins.
Sorry, Sam Adkins. Didn't even get it right. Damn it.
But Russell is at a point in his career where we could still get so much in return for him that I feel like it might. If it's time, it's time. Let's get what we can for him. Again, it's week 4, so let's see what happens. But if I have to get rid of 2 of those guys, Wilson and Bobby are gone.
Yeah. I have a hard time arguing with what any of you have said. This is what I will say. I think to a degree, Adams' production and his value is kind of, I'll say, a slightly misunderstood. And the reason why I say that is, outside of that Derrick Henry play where it wasn't entirely his fault, it was just a good play by the Titans. I haven't really seen Jamal Adams mess up. I don't see him messing up in coverage. When he is in coverage, he seems to be in good position. He seems to be, one of the few DBs that's actually close to the ball when it's thrown to help try and stop it. I haven't seen him get burned a lot. I know that there was, I think it was the Indy game where it looked like he was indecisive on whether he wanted to drop back or rush, and they kind of got hit for a touchdown. Ultimately didn't end in anything. So I want to say that Adams, I feel, has played particularly well. It's just that he doesn't have the flash. He doesn't have the stats that we would expect for him and for the money he's being paid. You add that to Bobby, like Ross has said, Bobby's doing what you want him to do. He's just not doing it where you want him to do it. He's getting tackles. He's a sure tackler, as he is always. But instead of them being at the line or behind the line of scrimmage, they're downfield. People are attacking him. He has become a liability, and he was always known for his tackling and his speed. But he's gotten there up in age, and if Derrick Henry can beat him for 6-7 receptions, which is more than double his career high, that's a problem. Having Bobby play that deep and still not be there to break up a pass, that's a problem. And Bobby's never been a coverage guy. He's not bad at coverage, but he's never been that guy. KJ was always the coverage guy. He was always the one that we would find, running out in coverage. Russell Wilson, I think this one's harder. I've talked about this a lot on the podcast. Quarterback is one of the hardest positions to replace, and because we don't have an heir apparent, I am very reluctant to even discuss the idea of replacing Russell Wilson when there's no one else to replace him. Even though I think he's played okay. He's been efficient, but I think if you look at the second half, he scored 2 touchdowns in 3 halves of football in the second half of all 3 games. One of the touchdowns was a busted coverage, and credit for him for taking advantage of that. But he's had multiple 3-and-outs. He had a chance in overtime with the Titans. He's had the ball multiple times, and whether that's a Shane Waldron issue, a play calling issue, offensive line, defense just playing really well, Russell Wilson has not had to come through and deliver like we need him to, and I think that's a problem. So I would reluctantly say that he's the one that's earning his money the most, because just the stats prove that. But the problem is, it's not when we need it to happen. And it's disappointing. It's disappointing that we're even having this discussion talking about the 3 most important players and the 3 most expensive ones on this team. I would not think that we would have to have this kind of a talk after 3 weeks of football.
Yeah, it sucks. Let me just recap your point real quick. Russell's doing the right thing, just not at the right time. Bobby's doing the right thing, just not in the right place. And Jamal's doing the right thing, just not in the right way.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. That's the way I look at it. But the main point of all of that is, like, it's not showing up where it needs to. And that's kind of the key difference with what we saw last year versus this year. One key note I want to point out from last year is our defense probably played worse last year, but the offense played so much better. The offense averaged 35.5 points in the first 4 games. First 4 games. That's enough to win every single game that we played. So regardless of what the defense did, if we scored 35.5 points, we win every single game.
There was a key difference last year, though. There was 2 key differences. Like, the raw numbers of yardage were worse, and even sometimes for points. But last year, even when we were playing really, really bad defense at the beginning of the year,
turnovers.
Yes,
that's huge, and I agree with that.
And we're not getting close to that.
We have 2 turnovers in 3 games. I think we have seven. We have 7 sacks.
Sorry,
7 sacks through 3 games.
Right. Only 1 last game though, so
right,
it's getting worse. And then also, like, although the yardage was worse last year, it didn't look as bad on the field.
Yeah, it didn't look as bad because we already had like a 2-3 score lead, so those teams needed to air it out, and our defense was like, look, we'll just let you take like 7 minutes off the clock because we're already up. We don't care if you score. You don't have enough time to score 2 or 3 times.
Right. And the execution didn't even always look as bad. I mean, like, there wasn't so many catches where, like, there's no Seahawk on the screen. I don't know. I'm just gonna say last year statistically was worse, but particularly this year, early in the season, like, we're seeing a lot of people use statistics in kind of dodgy ways. You can manipulate statistics, you know, QB ratings and DVOAs and all that. Like, DVOA hides a lot of sins. Like, you can give up if you can, like, get 2 long bombs and score on those. That's going to bring your DVOA up so far. If you're like a Kirk Cousins type quarterback, your QB rating is always going to be high, because essentially how QB rating is calculated, nobody realizes when they made it somehow, but it basically counts your completion percentage twice. So it just rewards a dink and dunk kind of person. So
right,
you can manipulate all these stats. So
I got a question for you guys. What do you think about the narrative that at the end of the first half, instead of throwing the Hail Mary, Russell threw it underneath because he didn't want to hurt his stats by throwing an interception?
I'm going to let Sammy address that first.
I saw more than one person make this claim, make this accusation.
I think it depends on...
I think the announcer said it tongue-in-cheek first, even.
I think it depends on what your opinions are of Russell Wilson. If you're a big Russell Wilson fan, you probably don't make that comment. If you are not a fan of Russell Wilson, not like saying you're not a fan of the Seahawks, but you like he is doing things that irk you or bother you, you would be more cynical and say, like, he only cares about the stats. He's not going to make that throw. I have a hard time thinking that, because in 4 minutes, you know, he threw the ball deep, and he almost had 2 touchdowns. DK Metcalf, I thought he got interfered with. The refs didn't think it was enough, and this is the second to last drive, not the last drive. And then there was I think it was to Freddie Swain, and I think Harrison got there like a full second before the ball did and interfered with him in the end zone.
The Penny Hart.
Penny Hart, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was a clear, and then they luckily they didn't rule that interception, but that was in double coverage. So I don't know if I would buy that. I think it really depends on your cynicism. But yeah, I mean, if you're down 2 scores, why do you need to throw the ball into the end zone? Like, what's it going to do? A moral victory saying you're within 1 score? I don't see any value in that.
Yeah. I for what it's worth, I agree with you. I don't doubt that he has a thing in the back of his mind that he hates throwing interceptions, and so we've all seen him make the safer decision sometimes, but as far as not throwing interceptions goes, but I don't see him. He wants to win the game more than he wants anything else. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
I'd also like to see being me, I'd like to see the percentage breakdown. Like, in that situation, what's the higher possibility of getting the touchdown? Like a catch and hope for a hook and ladder, or like a bomb, like a Hail Mary from where he was standing? Because from where he was standing, I don't think he can hit the end zone.
I'm sure he can. I feel like the touchdown percentage on Hail Marys is like about 10%, and the whole hook and ladder thing is probably lower. But I mean,
it's a bit situational as well. Like we in the past aren't a hook and ladder type team, so you suddenly run it, and they didn't have anybody around, but he didn't even manage to lateral. So
right,
yeah. But like Sammy said, I think really the more interesting question or the more interesting observation about the theory is, it's kind of a litmus test on where you stand with Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're gonna move ahead, and we're gonna go to topic number 3. Zeb, Jody Allen is your sugar mama, and she says, "You know what, Zeb? You love football. I'm gonna make you the owner of the Seahawks. What are the first 2 changes you're making this week? You rubber stamp Zeb as Seahawks owner. What are changes that you're making right now?"
Throwback uniforms.
Ooh, I'm in. Sign me up.
And God, I don't know. If I'm the owner, I know my role. I'm not making football decisions, but I don't know. I would demand accountability, I suppose, one way or another. Not that I know what that means, but I don't think we are at any risk of Jody demanding anything. I'm definitely glad we're not one of those teams that has an owner that likes to meddle that way. Loved Paul Allen's approach to the situation. I think that's definitely the way to go. But yeah, I mean, this week I'm not demanding anything. But if things start to go the way we're talking about, if the wheels are really falling off, maybe you do need to step in and tell Pete, hey, these things aren't working. You're going to have to do something about it. So I don't know. It's a tough one.
All right, Ross. Jody Allen's moved on from Zeb. She wants something new. She decides that you're the new owner, and she wants to know what are the changes that you're going to make.
Yeah, we're playing some young guys. I've seen enough to trade Flowers, and it can't get worse. So that's definitely going to be, what's his name? The dude Jones,
Sidney Jones.
And if Marquise Blair is healthy, he gets to play a lot, and maybe even in place of Quandre Diggs, although that's not his ideal position, but that's where he's going. And Jamal, yeah, I'm taking over the defense, man. Like, I'm just keeping it simple and getting the athletic guys. Like, if the scheme is the problem, then worry a little bit less about scheme and let some of those like young guys out there and just let them flow. It's a team game. They still have to deliver responsibilities and the gaps and the run fits and things, but get some of those guys who haven't learned what kind of big situation. The situation's not too big for them because they haven't learned that, right? They're still young and they're just hungry and they're playing.
Right. Ross is going to be the kind of owner that wears a uniform in the owner's box.
Yeah, like just call it. Like I've got like the mouthpiece. I'm just calling down. Just Pete, I don't know, man. Like I just feel like we should be blitzing Jamal, man. A gap, Jamal.
All right, so play the young guys. What's your second change? Jody's only giving you 2, so make it count.
I'm retiring jersey number 10 because I'm tired of people wearing Jim Zorn's number.
Paul Richardson, huh? You think he earned it?
No, that's Jim Zorn number 10 retired. Credit where credit's due. Retire that sucker. Sorry, it's just not right. And you're lucky I don't retire number 1 for Efren Herrera.
I feel you.
But I'm retiring number 10. I know he wasn't the best quarterback of all time. He was the quarterback at the time that they needed at the time. Put Seattle on the map, made them exciting, made them fun. Started the whole Monday Night Football that still goes on today. Seahawks are still amazing today, 40 years later on Monday Night Football because of that, how it started early. And one of those earliest days was like Zorn throwing to Efren Herrera, man. So honoring the past because I'm old, that's what we're doing.
Oh man, yeah. Ross, you've totally changed my decision. So Jody's tired of both of you, and she's going with me now, and she's giving me 2 changes. I'm going to steal a little bit of Ross's thunder, and we're going to retire Sean Alexander, number 37. Ooh. He's the only MVP, offensive MVP for the Seahawks. He is all-time leading rusher. And I think that is something that Seahawk fans, and again, I'm a jaded Sean Alexander lover because so many people hated him in his prime. I love him even more. That's the first thing that I would do. I would officially retire his number. The second thing I would do, I'd actually do 2 things with my second one. I'd build 2 statues. A statue of Marshawn from the Beastquake, grabbing the crotch, diving into the end zone. And then the second mural is Richard Sherman in the tip. I think that needs to be immortalized. So
100%.
Those are the 2 things that I would do: build statues and retire Sean Alexander's number. It has to happen, right? There has to be a statue sometime down the road, right?
The tip has to be a statue because, like, even how it happens in the poses and everything, like I say, the aesthetic, the visual of it lends itself towards being a statue. I think I think every one of us has a perfect picture of what it looks like in their head from all the angles that the game was shot of, and just Richard Sherman just perfectly, totally outreached. Malcolm Smith just like waiting, like almost expecting Sherman to tip that ball, and him just like opening his arms right away. So many times when a ball gets tipped, guys are like slow to get their hands out, but it's as if Malcolm Smith knew what was coming. And you don't even need Crabtree in that statue. You just really need Sherman, number 25, just outreach with the ball getting tipped. Oh
yeah, I hope if they do it, they have Crabtree, but it's no name, no logo. It's just football player.
It's just number 15 football player.
It doesn't even have no number, just a guy, guy in a helmet.
It's just actually just a tombstone.
I kind of want it to be Crabtree, just to not to immortalize him, but to immortalize yeah, dude, that was on you.
Yeah, but see, here's what I think. If the roles were reversed and the 49ers were building this statue, you think they'd put the Seahawks logo and all that stuff in their statue? I don't.
I mean, no. If Bo Jackson made a statue of him bowling over the bars, I wouldn't be against it, as embarrassing as that is, but...
Okay, but here's the thing. What if we do the statue and Crabtree's in it, part of him's in it, okay? But right over that part of the statue, we put a bird perch. The pigeons are just always there.
That's fair. I'll take it.
Yeah. Those are good decisions. I'll talk to my girl Jody, and we'll see what we can get done.
Please do.
What's up, girl? What's up, Jody? Hit me.
What's up, Jody? All right, well, let's move on to the last topic of the day, and that is topic number 4, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. So I think this goes to Ross, if I'm correct. Is this game a must-win for the Seahawks and the Niners? Only one can win. I mean, we're not shooting for a tie here, but is this a must-win game?
I think it is. For a couple of reasons. One, it's the way they've lost. The way they played the second half of the first loss and how they lost last week, and like I said, the mannerisms of it, and sort of like the feeling of the team. You've already got coaches talking about the players and the players talking about the scheme. After week 2, arguably, you had some veiled shots Pete's really, really frustrated this year, and if we have time, I'd like to express a couple of thoughts on that later. But Pete's really frustrated, and so, it's bigger than the average week 4 game would be, I think. And there's that hope, okay, this is the NFC West now. We beat San Francisco, and suddenly we're even with them, and we're then we're third place, and now we're just maybe 2 games behind, whatever. But yeah, it's not a typical week 4 game. The emotional investment in the game already, I think, is so high for this early in the season. It feels like a must-win game.
Zeb, are you chalking up must-win talk? Pete's probably not talking about must-win, but are you?
No, I'm not, because I don't believe that in a 17-game schedule, 3 losses is impossible to overcome. And I believe in Pete Carroll and this team and their ability to turn around, even if things don't go great this weekend. What I do think is that it's a very hopefully we should win. Hopefully we win. I would love that if we win. But I think more importantly than just getting the W, which obviously we all want, but just to see improvement. If we walk away from this game on the road against our quote-unquote rival with a tough loss in a close, hard-fought game, I won't be nearly as disappointed as I was in the last couple of games. There's a lot of football to be played still, but I want them to get the victory. I think it would definitely make me feel much better about the way things are going, but I don't need to call it a must-win. Not from my perspective, at least.
Birdfinger chiming in saying what Zeb said. So Bird's like you. He says it's not a must-win. In football, almost every game is must-win because you only get so many of them. Obviously, adding the fact that it's a divisional game, it's the first divisional game, being 1-3 to start the year with already a divisional loss, it really does set you back and it puts you in a worse position. As you said, Zeb, it's not the end of the road. You can come back from 1-3 with, 13 more games to play. It's just one of those things that it becomes harder and harder and harder. We're at this stage that if we were talking about like our own fantasy teams, if your fantasy team is 1-3, you're thinking, oh man, I really got to make a run, or my players really have to pick it up, or chalk it up to bad luck as to how I lost. But 1-3 is a really, really bad position to be in because you have to win so many more games just to get back up to 500. And it's not like this schedule gets any easier. It's probably not a traditional must-win, but it is really important to see how they play. Kind of like what you said, Zeb, already, is that how they play is going to have almost a bigger level of importance than the final score. If they go out and for the third game in a row have a great first half and then do nothing in the second half, it's going to be bad. It's going to make it look as if this team is broken, and fans are going to demand action. Players are going to be upset. There's going to be a potential wedge driven between the coaching staff and the players themselves, which is always a bad thing. I think that Seattle needs this win more than San Francisco, and it's pretty rare for Seattle to be in that position where they feel as if they have to win. You know, one of the benefits of Pete Carroll is that he's always been able to get his players to play loose, to play fast, to play within the system. We're seeing that kind of break down this year, where it's not the kind of team we really expect, because they haven't had enough consistency to really demonstrate that that's the team we think they are on paper. So I'm kind of wishy-washy on this and saying that, yeah, it's a must-win, but not in the sense that like our season depends on this game. It's a must-win just because, you know, it's going to really set the tone for how the season's going to play out, especially coming off that ugly loss against Minnesota. They have to rebound. They have to show a lot more fight than what we saw in the last week and a half, or game and a half, I should say.
Yeah.
After the last game, I mean, you had Trey Flowers saying things like, well, y'all want me to be Richard Sherman. Okay, like, yeah, I mean, take aside the fact that the pure fact of that, yes, dude, if we had Richard Sherman in his prime playing out there, that would be better. But the fact that he's saying stuff like that, and then the other guy was saying that the other cornerback is saying, DJ Reed is saying, like, there's some issues with the scheme and people don't know the scheme. Man, when you got players talking like that to, you know, on social media already, and when you saw like Russell Wilson's reaction to some of the stuff going on in the second half of the game, when you hear Pete talking after the game, like I've long said, like, it doesn't really matter what Pete says in the press conferences, and I always get mad when people use that as evidence of anything, good or bad, or what I believe or don't believe, because he clearly doesn't believe that anything he says in the media has to be true. That's not what his job is. But the tone is different. He's losing patience. Like I said, I believe that he's made some changes this year that he doesn't necessarily believe in. He's willing to give it a shot because he wants Russell to be happy. He thinks Russell's the key to the future. So he's going against his better judgment on a few things, some of his deeper principles, and hoping that, you know, that he's proven to be wrong, that these principles are right. And I think he thinks after 2 games, he doesn't see it. And so I think he's already having a tinge of, well, yeah, this is how I kind of feared things would go. I don't think he necessarily wanted this kind of offense to be brought in. I think he does really believe in time of possession, although lots of like the neo analysts poo-poo that and things like that. But I think he has his principles that he thinks have done him right for his entire career. Once he got back into the NFL, re-entered the NFL, and he's gone against some of them. Didn't mind it. Was going to go for it because, again, like, you probably had that talk with John Schneider's like, look, you know, maybe it is, maybe the game has passed. Maybe all those other people are right. We're going to do this. We're going to do the offense this way. We're going to not worry so much about defense because it's all going to be on the offense. And this is what we're going to do, and it's going to work out because that's what everybody says it works in now. And then now they're doing it, and I just think Pete Carroll's going like, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. If you have this cool, sexy offense, it's going to be awesome and it looks great. But then our defense is out on the field the whole time, and by not focusing on some of the, by not spending more money on the defense, we're not going to stop anybody. So even if our cool new offense is out there, it's not going to be out there enough. And I just think he's thinking, oh my God, I knew it. And also, to be honest, I will concede this finally. There may be a chance that Pete Carroll is actually just starting to age a little bit. Doesn't look like it still. He's still, I hope I look like that when I'm 70. But, things happen. Perceptions change, and your mind does change as you get older. And maybe there's a bit of that going on as well, because he's a different guy this year.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because Pete's not a play caller. He's not on the sidelines calling plays or the offense or the defense. He's the architect of the team, and he is kind of the guru of the philosophy and all of the things that really encompasses what the team wants to do. So it's interesting to see how that potentially is a problem. there's so many people that look at the other NFC West teams, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, I forget the Arizona coach, but they're all relatively young. They're all like, up and coming guys who have really revitalized the NFC West and made it ridiculously competitive. And that, I think, is very frustrating for a lot of Seahawks fans to see, because Pete Carroll's been here forever now. We're talking about year 12, and people kind of get bored of the same thing. It's not enough anymore. So we'll see. This game, I think, will be really telling. Final thoughts on the Niners, though.
Well, on a brighter note, the history of the Seahawks and the 49ers is really a history of domination. The Seahawks all-time are 28-17 against the 49ers.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't have guessed it was that imbalanced. Wow.
It's really imbalanced. It's really bad.
If you go back and look, when the 49ers were at their best, I think, since since we were in the division together, back in 2012, 2013, 2014, we really just had our way with them. We gave them one of the biggest lopsided victories that we've had, 42-13, when the Niners, the year they went to the Super Bowl. We held them to single scores 3 games in a row, 3 points twice. When this is when the 49ers were a powerhouse NFC team. And we beat them 5 years in a row. We went 10 games without losing to them from 2014 to 2018. You know what I mean? Like, this is domination. We scored 40 on them 4 times. They've done it to us once. We've topped 30 points like 11 times. They've done it to us like 4 or 5 times. It's just it's been a very lopsided history. So, maybe that's a little something. Give us a little confidence going into this next game, that history shows that we will probably fare well against them.
Yeah, we have a very dominating record against the Niners. Against the Cardinals, we're like 500. And against the Rams, they definitely have the edge since the realignment and the Seahawks joined the NFC West for sure.
I feel like so much happened last week. We spent the whole time talking about last game. And next week, we'll be focused on, not always looking back. We got to look forward. But this game, I am actually looking forward to seeing how much we see Trey Lance. I feel like he's going to be worked in a bit more than he has been up to this point. I feel like with our bad defense, they feel like they may feel like it's a good chance to get their rookie quarterback some snaps.
I mean, I'm not a Garoppolo fan, and he didn't have like the best game, but they were winning with less than a minute, and he drove them down the field. Outside of that one dumb like whirling dervish like fumble that he had to give the Packers like a free field goal, they were so close to being 3-0. So
I don't mean like they'll play Trey Lance as a shot at Garoppolo. I think he's doing fine. It's just they gave up the world to move up to take a quarterback. I'm still not convinced it was actually Trey Lance they had in mind when they made the trade. I think it really was Mac Jones. I think he was talked out of it later. But you can't give up that much. Was it 3 number ones? 3?
Yeah, to move up to number 3. Yeah.
3 number 1 picks to move up there, and like you can't invest that and then not use it. So I think this is, sadly, we are a defense that you want to get your rookie guys some snaps against. It's a real NFL environment in theory, but we're sort of not really a real NFL defense right now. So
true.
The NFL Trey Lance.
Yeah,
we got like 1 carry for 1 yard and a touchdown last week.
Yeah, and they've had like every single injury hit their running backs. They're like the Ravens West with running back injuries.
But I feel like that happens to them every year. Every year their backs are out.
I mean, they've had a pretty bad string of injuries the last 3 years, and it's always been around the running back.
Sounds like a karma thing to me.
Yeah,
I think it's their crappy field, but that's my uneducated guess.
Shanahan just like taking baseball bats to his running backs secretly.
Yeah.
Dude, you know we've shut them out. We've shut them out twice. They've never shut us out. We've held them to single-digit scores 11 times. They've done it to us twice.
Yikes!
Domination. It's domination.
Yeah, maybe history will be in our favor on Sunday then.
Sure hope so.
All right, we're gonna move along. Those were our topics for the day. And we're gonna close that with some predictions. So Zeb, I'm gonna hit you off.
Wait,
first.
we have to go over our last predictions.
Yeah, I know. I got it.
Okay,
So
sorry.
last week, Ross predicted a 38-31 Seahawks win. Zeb with a 27-24 Seahawks win. I went 28-21. None of us were really close. I guess, man, I don't even know if any of us deserve any credit for our wins because the Vikings scored 30. Seattle capped out at 17. Yeah, I don't think any of us deserve any credit for the prediction last week. So don't take our bets seriously because we're not very good at it right now.
Except this week it's going to be different.
Okay, Zeb, hit us up. Final score: Seahawks at Niners.
Seahawks 31, Niners 30.
Okay. Ross.
Seahawks 28, 49ers 31.
Bad mojo.
Yeah.
You know,
bad
can
juju.
you think of the last time I predicted a loss? But I see some bad stuff on the horizon, man.
No, you're right. I almost
There's
did
a
too.
bad moon.
Almost did it.
I unfortunately am going to be like Ross. As much as I hope the Seahawks will be able to turn around, I don't know if this is the week they're going to be able to do it. I'm going to predict a 21-24 Seahawks loss.
Under 30 points for San Francisco, huh?
I don't know if I really trust their offense yet. I mean, they're not really running the ball, so that's not really what Shanahan has liked to do in the past. And Garoppolo is still a turnover liability to a degree, but also our defense can't really stop anyone. So he might just have like a day, and maybe we'll get like our first interception. But I don't know if it'll be enough. Zeb, over under. First half points 13.5 for the Seahawks.
Over.
Ross?
Over.
I'm going to go over. I think Shane Waldron has done a good job of scheming in the first half. But over under 6.5 second half points, Zeb, for the Seahawks.
Over.
Okay. Ross?
Slightly over.
I'm going to say under. We're averaging 14 and a third point over the last 3 games, and we got shut out last week, so I'm going to say under. Zeb, over under 5.5 second half possessions for the Seahawks. Are they going to get some stops?
I don't know about that. Under.
Okay. Ross?
Under.
Reluctantly. I'm sorry, I have to agree. I'm not very hopeful. I have to see it first. I can't just rely on hope with these Seahawks right now. Over under Zeb, 25.5 minutes for time of possession for the Seahawks. They've been averaging about 22 in the last 2 games.
Yeah, we're gonna go over this time.
Under. Just under.
Yeah, I'm also going to go under with Ross. I need to see the defense actually get off the field and not let teams just churn and eat them up. Zeb, who's going to have more passing yards, Russ or Jimmy G?
Young Russell.
Young Russell. He's going to be young Russell like when he's 50 still.
He'll always be young to me.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I think Russ is going to have more yards. I think Jimmy G, if they can pound the rock, he won't need to do as much. But, our secondary can't stop anyone, so maybe he will do it. But I think Russ is going to have a decent day statistically, but it's just not going to be enough. Final prediction for the evening, Zeb. Who's going to have more rushing yards, Mr. Chris Carson or the San Francisco running backs? I don't even know who's really playing for them. They've got like 5 guys they're rotating through, but who's going to have more yards?
Is Carson healthy this week? Fully? Is he on any reports?
He's practicing.
Okay, I'll give it to him then.
Okay.
He's gonna have a good game.
I guess I'm going with 49ers running backs on this one. Sorry.
Name one of them.
Sermon.
Did you say Sermon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He got like 2 touches in the last game, but he got a touchdown. So yeah, it's possible.
Eric Sermon.
Yeah, 10 carries for like 31 yards in one game. So I don't know.
I'm going to say Chris Carson, not because I think he's going to have an outstanding game. They kind of are still limiting his touches, and he's going to get like 80 to 90-ish yards, but the San Francisco team is not going to run a whole lot. They won't need to, so I'm going to give it to Chris Carson by default.
I like it.
Yeah. And, gentlemen, that is our podcast for the day.
That was a good one.
It's a little sad. That one was a little depressing, I have to say. But
yeah, but I feel like we really worked through some of these issues and got to the core of things.
I do feel it was very therapeutic. It was very therapeutic to kind of talk about it and express some of our concerns, for sure.
I agree.
But now it is time for some shout-outs. Gentlemen, do you have any shout-outs?
I got a couple shout-outs. Shout out to my brother, Joe, and my pop. For a fantastic fishing trip this last weekend. Had a great time with you two bozos. And shout out to my neighbors across the street who appear to be having sex in front of the window.
Good times. Ross, I don't know how you're going to beat that shout out. I'm sorry. Fishing and people having sex outside?
I just can't. I mean, like, that just kind of kills my shout out. So. It would be weird to follow it up with all the shout out I was going to give, so I'm just going to be like, shout out to, democracy loving people everywhere.
Liberty.
Shout out to Bird and for Tony for chiming in on the chat. Tony chiming in saying the 2 greatest words in the English language, default. So that is always a win. I am Sam. With me, as always, is Zeb and Ross. You can find them. I'm SammyC521 at Twitter. Zeb is Zebulon Dak on Twitter. Ross is Veta the Moor at Twitter. You can find us, Seahawks Podcast, Seahawks Forum. Go to hawkscast.net. We are the hawkscast.net podcast, and we wish you all a wonderful evening and a Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Hawks.